Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joe Bandel. I'm the last Rosicrucian. I haven't done a Gaia Ascension update in a long time, and I thought, you know, maybe with everything that's going on in the world, maybe I should just give an update so that people kind of can orient themselves to the changes that are happening and what's really going on, the way that I perceive them. But one of the reasons that I have not spoken about this so much is because it's really tricky. It's really difficult to my understanding, what I perceive to be happening with Gaia's ascension process is not going to be politically correct. Okay? I just put it that way. So, all I can say is you either pay attention to whether you are drawn positively to what I'm talking about, or whether uh, you're kind of like turned off by it, because uh, things are so polarized now that they are snapping into place according to their polarities. In other words, there's people that are going to find what I have to say extremely interesting and helpful. And then there's other people it's just going to be like, hey, that's just too weird, way too weird. And it's not going to help because I'm going to be jumping around from one kind of abstract topic to another abstract topic, and it's going to be difficult. But I'm going to try. And how best to try other than talk about timelines, because there's so many new age sites out there that are talking about timelines. They're talking about shifting timelines. They're talking about uh, being on the right timeline and things like that. And the whole idea of timelines is a metaphysical and occult concept, and it involves the astral planes, if you will. And relatively speaking, if something is high, very high up in the astral planes, it refers to future incidents. Whereas as the lower you get, the closer it comes to physical manifestation, supposedly. All right. I mention this because one of the most powerful incidents in my life came after almost, well, it was 20 years of Rosicrucian study. We're talking about back in 1991. I was living in Phoenix, and I had spent the last 20, 25 years of my life just meditating, praying, being on a spiritual path toward the light, uh, renouncing the world, and it really raised hell with my family life and things like that, because I was basically what, like my grandfather talks about, being so heavenly bound, you're no earthly good. I was no earthly good. But I was that heavenly bound. I was struggling to connect to source, or what in the occult they call crossing the great abyss. And it happened. And what that was unity. It was where you reach a point where your whole mental concepts, your whole cognitive structure uh, hits a reset point, basically. And all of a sudden, everything, A equals B equals C equals, it all connects up, whereas before it didn't connect up. And what you end up with is what you would call, what I tried to call self-evident things. Things that it's just the way they were. It's so perfect. And this state of mind, this state of cognition, is beyond logic and reason. In a lot of the mystery schools, the various traditions, especially the magical traditions, they talk about the crossing of the great abyss and the death of the ego, which is the death of the mental self, because you're going from logic and reason to self-evident perception, where all of a sudden you're not rationalizing things, you're just perceiving the solution. You're perceiving it's like everything below that point is paradox. Everything above that point is paradox resolution, because it all makes sense. And what happens is our universe is essentially alternating current, which means that, like Newton said, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. And what happens, essentially, what that, another way of saying that, what means is life is essentially bittersweet. You're not going to get all good things, you're not going to get all bad things. Even though people polarize themselves in one direction or the other, but the balance exists. And one of the things that happened when I crossed the Great Abyss was that I was granted a vision of my soul, my timeline, for the next great cycle. And how it in other words, this cycle that's just beginning now, this great cycle that's just beginning, there is a future aspect of myself that made it to the end and rang the bell. One of the things that's powerful about this is the new cycle, the new age, cannot begin for somebody until they've rang the bell on the other end, until their soul has achieved that. They've reached the point. Because everybody, it's just the way it is. You gotta, because everything needs to be perfectly in balance. So that means that your physical world, where you are right now, is in perfect balance. And when you go out with your soul on your timeline and you go out to the end of that cycle, that great cycle, it's 26,000 years or whatever the hell it is, everything balances back up. It could get out of whack in the middle, but at the end everything balances out, and it reaches a perfection point of balance. And once it ends, then you can start. So that's kind of a paradoxical thing. But how I would look at that is, well, let's just leave it at that for now, because I don't want to get caught up in things like that. But the point was that I got this vision of a timeline that I was going to follow. And does that mean that there's no such thing as free will? No, it doesn't mean that. I give an example in that the timeline that existed for this closure of the one that we're leaving or have left. At one point called for World War III, nuclear holocaust. And we avoided it. Okay, we avoided it. So we've done an excellent job collectively in avoiding that thing that was written out there. It was part of the part of the timeline. So it doesn't need to happen. But there needs to be a closure point to begin with. And it's changeable. We can work it. But what happens is you go with what you got, and then as things go along, things change a little this way, they change a little that way, and whatever, and you end up, hopefully, end up with something better than what you started with. Okay? And the reason that I'm talking about this timeline is because ever since 1991, nothing has really changed in my timeline. And I have watched it, I've experienced it come down. At first, back in 1991, it was way up here. It was above the crown chakra. It was in the spiritual energies. And it gradually came down through the abstract mental, the concrete mental, the upper emotional, the lower emotional. It kept coming down. For example, and I'm going to give an example here. Around 2012, when everybody was talking about the end of the Mayan calendar and things like that, everybody was chakra center, the crown chakra, getting in, tapping into the crown chakra and getting those energies. And it was right around that point where all of a sudden the message or what I was experiencing was, it's too late for that. Now you got to open up the heart chakra. You got to go into the heart chakra. You got to go into the heart chakra. And gradually, I saw the whole New Age metaphysical ascension community start to go into the heart chakra thing. Okay, this is the heart chakra. This is what you got to do. You got to bring everything down into the heart. And it was a couple of years ago that it really struck me that, hey, it's too late for that, the heart chakra. You got to get everything down to the root chakra, because that's where it's headed. That's where the activity is now. That's where the empowerment is now. If you have not done the work in the higher levels, it's too late, because that action point, you've passed it. You missed out on it. So for myself, it was like, okay, it's the root chakra now. And I've shared that. I've said that's that way for everybody. It's time to start powering up the root chakras, because at the beginning of an age, a great cycle, it always starts at the bottom. It always starts at the root chakra. And we have 2,000 years, the root chakra energy, which is basically talking about the etheric energy, the etheric body, which is talking about the underworld or the spirit worlds, that everything that's below what we consider physical, normal physical reality. So it's kind of like, I'm not saying forget about what's going on in the world or everything like that, but I'm saying, hey, be working on the root chakra and be trying to integrate that root chakra with the heart chakra and some of the mental, the emotional and mental energies. Because at this point in time right now, you're going to need to rely upon the root chakra, because every individual has a separate timeline, and that timeline is crystallizing right now. It's going in, it's a deepening, and we are surrounding ourselves with the future that we have created collectively, both collectively and individually. And those of us that were years ago tapping into those crown chakra energies when it was appropriate to 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 tap into those crown chakra energies and work with them, we were able to alter the future. And what I'm going to say, how I'm going to express that is, I'm going to say, it was written that there would be World War III and nuclear holocaust. And there were enough of us that were active and tapping in at the highest level that we were able to alter that. We were able to change that. But the thing is, everybody has there were a lot of people that couldn't operate at that level. So it was the next one's turn. And I'm skipping around a little because there's obviously more than the crown chakra, the heart chakra, and the root chakra. There's a lot more. But I'm just going to talk about these three for simplicity's statement. It's time for the heart chakra people to make a difference. Because what happened is, these crown chakra people, they did what they could, and they're holding it in place. And it is still being held in place. But because it's kind of like you only have so much, so many tokens that you can put out there. So each one of us has done our job. We've put out what we could. Can't really influence anything anymore, because we created the timeline for ourselves. I'm going to give another example that I'm hoping will help people understand the timelines. Next week, on the 24th of April, I'm going to turn 67. So I'm retired. The thing is that I have created a timeline for myself, a personal timeline, and I have defended that timeline for many years now against anything that would alter it. And because I was able to tap in at the higher and lower levels, I can defend it actively. And let's say that my timeline that I have created and I'm defending has the simple thing that says, I'm going to have a I'm going to have my Social Security check come every month because that's the only income and living that I have. Okay, so that's part of the timeline that I've created for myself and that I am actively defending. Well, what's all these people? What about all these people that are trying to create a future where there's World War III or there's this big financial crisis and upset, and my Social Security check disappears or something happens where I can't get it? And I'm saying it can't happen. It can't happen. And because it can't happen to me, because I'm defending this timeline, there's these other people around me in my environment that it can't happen to them either. So what I'm saying is there are some of us that are creating safe timelines, creative timelines, and defending those timelines, and other people are gathering around us because they want to have their Social Security check too. Now, obviously, there's other people living in other parts, or they're in a different world. They're not going to have, they're going to be having some hardships. They're going to be having some financial troubles with some of that stuff because they're vulnerable to it. They've chosen a timeline that's different. I hope I'm trying that this is making sense, because what I'm saying is there's some very strong people out there and they're creating timelines that are fairly stable and safe, and they're not special. Getting a Social Security check at the end of the month is not anything special, but it's powerful. Okay, that's kind of what I'm getting at. And because they're doing that, these other people, you call them the elite, that they're trying to do things, trying to make changes in the world, trying to enslave the population. It won't work for them. So they keep trying to go like this, and it bumps up against my energy, and it can't go any further. It bumps up against somebody else's energy that's added to my energy, and it can't go any further. So there's some things that they can do and some things that they can't do. And so that's what's happening in the world, and that's what's happening in Gaia's ascension process, is you have these elite that are trying to enslave the world, and they're not able to do certain things, and they never will be able to do certain things. And we are seeing, especially in this past month, we're seeing where these global battles are winners and losers are being defined. I'm going to give an example. And again, this is not to trigger somebody or anything like that, but I'm just going to come out and say it like it is. The Russia-Ukraine conflict, where NATO has been in there and trying to push and make a sacrificial lamb out of Ukraine, that has been essentially won. Russia's won. And NATO and Europe and everything, there was this power conflict, this power, who's going to win, who's going to win, who's going to win, dominance. They're looking for dominance. Is it going to be a global hegemony led by the United States, who's on the top of the pyramid? Or is it going to be a multipolar world where each country has its own empowerment? And it's a done deal. It's not acted out yet, but in the astral, it's becoming clearer and clearer, and it's manifesting. Uh, NATO lost. The European Union lost. We are going BRICS. BRICS has won. A gold-based monetary system has won. It hasn't manifested yet, but it is inevitable. That's one of the things that's happened. The other thing that's happened, which really has turned heads, made them spin around like the Exorcist, where they're spitting out pea soup, is this thing that just happened with Israel and Iran. Now, Israel has been committing genocide in the Gaza Strip. I don't care what politics people are saying or anything, but when you're saying you're fighting a military thing and you're killing civilians and you're killing children, you're killing women and children, no, that's evil. That is inhumane. That is, and starving people to death. That's inhumane. But Israel and the United States has for years done whatever they want. They've gone in and they've bombed certain places. They've did assassinations to leaders, things like that. And what happened? What just happened a few weeks ago? They went in and they took out these generals, these Iranian generals that were in a diplomatic embassy, which is protected by international law. And so Israel ignored, as it does, as the United States does, as other countries do too. But I'm just saying that it's kind of like the rules are for you, but not for me. If we want to do it this, okay. And what I'm getting at is, if you're going to have rules, everybody's got to follow the rules. Is what's going on. And Iran came out and they said, you can't do that. We've let you do that before, but you can't do that anymore. And why did they have the guts to stand up to Israel like they did? Maybe, just maybe, because Russia stood up to NATO in Ukraine. Just saying. Because they're related in a certain way, because it's like somebody is used to being the big bully. The United States, NATO, Europe, they thought Russia was going to cave in. Oh, it's weak, it's weak, it's weak, it's this or that. And Russia came across and said, you can't swat us down like that. And they're winning. Okay, now here you got Israel, who's been the big bully in the Middle East, going and doing whatever it damn well pleases. And all of a sudden, Iran came around and said, we're gonna show you that we can hit military targets whenever we want. We can get in. You are no longer safe. That's what just happened. And all of a sudden, the United States has been knocked off its perch. Israel's been knocked off its perch. And you want to argue, I'm not going to argue about these things, but I'm going to say, let me give an example. Hypersonic missiles. China has hypersonic missiles. Russia has hypersonic missiles. Iran has hypersonic missiles. North Korea may have hypersonic missiles. The United States and Israel, they don't have hypersonic missiles. Well, guess what? The United States and Israel and the European Union, they do not have anything that will take out or shoot down hypersonic missiles. And what does that mean? This is not a political debate or anything like that. I'm trying to just share truths that I perceive, what I perceive as truths, in the hopes that, hey, maybe some of this will be helpful to sort things out. What it means is that China, Russia, Iran, say North Korea, they can sink any aircraft carriers. Just like that. We cannot stop them. We cannot prevent them from sinking our aircraft carriers. United States aircraft carriers. And in fact, the entire Navy. We cannot prevent that. And because America is so far removed from Europe and the Middle East and Asia, it depends on those aircraft carriers to bully its way around. So, realistically speaking, and I don't care what side you're on or anything like that, America has to be careful because these countries can sink their aircraft carriers. They have no defense. They can get sunk. So there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, there's a lot of bluster, there's a lot of anger, and there's a lot of bluffing. But what's happening is Russia doesn't bluff. Iran doesn't bluff. And China's not bluffing. Of the three, China's being the most smooth. They're being the most political and trying to, diplomatic, okay? But all of a sudden, Europe, like Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Israel, all these people have been used to getting their own ways and having the United States at the top of the pyramid. All of a sudden, they got smacked in the nose. And this has just happened this year. It's happening now. Everything that the European Union has tried to do to wreck Russia has backfired on them. And it will backfire on them. And there are metaphysical reasons for that I'm not going to get into because that's not the point of this. The point of this whole talk is just to give an update on Gaia's ascension and where we're going. And the ascension process is basically the timelines, the activity, it's getting lower and lower. It's closer and closer and closer to physical manifestation. And everything's crystallizing into its final position. And once that final position takes place, there's no going back. There's no going back. And that's what's happening. Everything's locking into place. And what's happening is some people who have been living in their heads are getting the rug pulled under them, out from under them. Only the people who have activated and been working with the root chakra, working with the realities of the lower levels and bringing them into awareness, have a chance. Everything else, if all the activity's been up here and you've been irrational, whether you're a country or whether you're an individual, you're going to get the rug pulled out from under you. You're going to go crazy. That's what's happening now. But the good thing that I've noticed as I have followed my personal timeline as it has come down further and further and further, and I have seen the polarity, the polarization of things in the world. The people are so polarized that nothing can happen. What I have come to realize is that's a good thing. It's a good thing because nobody's winning. And because nobody's winning, it just kind of neutralizes each other, and it gets a little lower, and it gets a little lower, it gets a little lower, it gets a little closer and closer until it finally happens. And what's going to happen is that nothing, in other words, the best possible outcome is that neither side wins. And neither side can win because it's balanced. It started at the beginning, it was balanced, and at the end it has to be balanced. And balanced means it has to be perfectly 50-50. And these people who have worked with their shadow aspect, they've worked to integrate their shadow aspect, are beginning to work with that alternating current that is the ascension current. And they're able to be creatively positive and creative with their energies. And that's where I feel that I'm coming in, as able to be positive and creative with my energies, because I have worked through all of that black stuff. And I still might get something come in out of a blind spot, like where I've dislocated my ankle or whatever like that. But to dislocate your ankle and to deal with that, it could be a lot worse. So I think that I have been magically protected and will continue to be magically protected because I am actively trying to integrate these things. I'm trying to bring in source energy, which is the highest possible energy, and anchor it in the earth and in the root chakra. So this is basically, I hope that what I'm trying to get across comes across, or whatever, is this is where we're at with Gaia's Ascension. Is a group of us, they say the first wave or whatever, we're settling in. And because we're settling in, we are defending our individual timelines in a way that actually messes with a lot of people that would like to do a lot of very drastic things. So we are creating, you could say, these few individuals are actually, by protecting their own timelines, they are protecting communities. And this is as the big picture is gradual, the collective picture, the big picture is basically grinding itself out. But these are the stable points. Each of these individuals who have worked like I've been working to do these things, and there's a lot of us. It's kind of like we're the sediment. We're just kind of crystallized around, and everybody else, we're helping other people to crystallize. And if I'm putting out this video for a purpose, it is to help each individual to kind of crystallize where they're at. Because the message is everything's locking in. Look at where you're at. Your timeline is pretty much determined right now. Because even though everybody has a different timeline, that timeline is it's going to be, it's April for right now for me, it's April for you, it's April for everybody else. It's in other words, time goes on like that. You may be in a timeline that's more positive than mine is or more negative than mine is, but fall comes same time as fall comes for me. Spring comes same time spring comes for me, unless you're on the opposite side of the world. So anyway, that's all I'm going to attempt to talk about today, and it's kind of weird, but I hope it kind of makes sense, because in summary, what just happened was the United States, Europe, and Israel got knocked off their perch. Whether you want to think that's a good thing, you want to think it's a bad thing, they've got knocked off their perch. They can no longer call the shots. They are no longer the bullies. And they're having a hard time of it. And this year is where it comes home. Because it's becoming self-evident that, and what happens when the bully can't be a bully anymore? Just saying. Okay, thank you. I hope you enjoyed this. Talk to you later. Bye.